Imagine paying extra for comfort, peace, and space on a long flight, only for a stranger to decide that you should give it all up, just to make their life easier. That's exactly what happened to me on a Lufthansa flight. They thought I'd roll over and give up my seat. Instead, they spent 4 hours regretting it. If you've ever been underestimated, disrespected, or pressured to give up something you earned, you're going to love this story. Hit that like button, subscribe to Sweet Revenge Tales, and get ready for one of the most satisfying in-flight revenge stories you'll ever hear. I had booked this particular flight with one goal in mind: peace. I don't travel business class often, but this time I splurged. Not for champagne or fancy food, but for one simple luxury: an empty middle seat. Lufthansa actually markets it, an empty seat guarantee in business. For someone like me who values personal space, it was worth every penny. I pictured myself leaning back, stretching out, and finally catching a few hours of calm. When I boarded, everything looked perfect. I had the window seat. The aisle seat was taken by a man in his mid-40s, maybe early 50s. Normal enough guy, gray streaks in his hair, expensive-looking watch. The type who sits down and immediately adjusts his laptop bag like it's a throne accessory. I nodded politely, he nodded back. No problem. The empty middle seat between us felt like a golden moat, protecting the quiet bubble I had paid for. But peace never lasts long when entitlement enters the picture. About 10 minutes later, as boarding finished, a woman and a boy, maybe around 12, approached. The boy looked tired, the mother slightly frantic. They stopped right by us. My stomach dropped before she even opened her mouth. "Excuse me," the woman said, smiling like it wasn't a request but a given. "Would you mind switching seats with me? That way I can sit with my husband and son." I glanced at her ticket in her hand. Economy. Not premium economy. Not business. Economy. Her husband, my aisle seat neighbor, was already looking at me like I was about to hand over my seat out of the goodness of my heart. I smiled politely but shook my head. "I'm sorry, I booked this specifically. I'd like to stay here." Her smile stiffened. "Well then maybe at least the boy can sit in the middle?" I blinked. The middle seat I paid to keep empty. Before I could even answer, the husband leaned toward me, voice low but insistent. "It's not a big deal. He'll just sit in the middle. You don't need an empty seat next to you. Stewardess already said it was fine." Now here's the kicker. Later I found out the flight attendant had actually said only if the passenger agrees. But the husband twisted it. He assumed, no, declared, that of course I would agree. Because I was family too, apparently. The mother nodded as if it was settled. The boy started hovering closer, about to plop down into my sanctuary. But I didn't move. I didn't budge an inch. My heart was pounding. Part of me hates confrontation. The social script says be nice, give in, don't make a fuss. But another part of me burned. Why should my comfort, my money, my decision be erased for their convenience? I thought about the hours of this flight. About the quiet I had envisioned. About how I had actually sacrificed to afford this ticket. And I thought, no, not today. I looked directly at the husband and said, calm but firm, "No. The middle seat stays empty. That's why I paid for this ticket." The silence was heavy. The mother's jaw tightened. The boy hovered awkwardly. Finally, the wife sighed and tugged her son back toward economy. The husband muttered something under his breath but stayed seated. Victory, right? Not quite. Because for the next 4 hours, I was treated to the most passive-aggressive symphony imaginable. Every time I slipped off my headphones, there it was. Muttering, sighing, whispers dripping with contempt. Some people, unbelievable. Imagine caring more about a seat than a child. Selfish. He wanted me to hear. He wanted me to feel guilty. But here's the thing. Instead of guilt, every word fed my resolve. Because the truth was obvious. He wasn't angry that I had wronged them. He was angry that his manipulation didn't work. And that, my friends, is the sweetest revenge. At one point, the mother actually refused to sit back down in economy. She stood in the aisle, arms crossed, glaring like a queen denied her throne. Another stewardess had to come and explain firmly, twice, that they couldn't just occupy business seats without paying for them. Meanwhile, I sat back, stretched my legs into the glorious empty space and enjoyed my drink. Every sigh from the husband was like applause. By the time we landed, I had spent nearly 4 hours basking in the luxury I paid for, and the delicious irony of his frustration. You wanted me miserable. Instead, I was comfortable, calm, and smugly satisfied. As we stood to leave, he muttered one last bitter line. Some people just don't know how to be decent. I smiled, looked him in the eye, and said softly, "Enjoy economy next time." The way his face flushed red, worth every penny. This whole experience reminded me. Kindness is a choice, not an obligation. Respecting others means respecting their boundaries, their effort, and yes, even their seats. Entitlement isn't family love. It's selfishness wrapped in a disguise. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply standing your ground. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and drop a comment. Would you have given up the seat or stood your ground like I did? And of course, subscribe to Sweet Revenge Tales for more real-life justice served cold.